This happened 2 summers ago in late June, right before the 4th of July weekend. My name's Travis. I live in upstate New York, and I grew up next to the Hudson River. Not like right next to it, but close enough that we'd go down there with bikes almost every weekend, fishing, skipping rocks, swimming when the water didn't look like straight sewage. It was just kind of what we did, me and my cousin Ryan and our friend Dave. That summer was a weird one. It was hotter than usual, like sticky hot, mosquitoes biting through your clothes hot. And I remember it rained way less than normal. The river had this kind of thick, muddy smell that never quite went away. And maybe it's just in my head looking back, but I swear everything around the river felt off that year. Less people out there, less sound, like the woods were too quiet. Anyway, we had this spot we always went to. It was a small bend in the river behind a stretch of abandoned train tracks. Super sketchy to get to, like overgrown paths, poison ivy everywhere, and a rusted out old rail car that sat there like it hadn't moved in 100 years. But it was perfect. No cops, no adults. We could drink, smoke, swim, whatever. So this one Friday night, we decided to camp there, not overnight, just until like 2 or 3 a.m., then head back. We brought a cheap speaker, a couple 6-packs, some snacks. It was just dumb summer stuff. Ryan had a Bluetooth lantern thing, so we had light. It was chill. Around 11, the river got real still, like glass, which is weird because usually it's flowing, even if it's just slow. I remember I said something like, "Yo, this feels like a horror movie setup." And Dave goes, "Don't jinx us, man." That's when we heard the splash. Not a fish jumping kind of splash. This was big, like someone tossed a bowling ball into the water, and it wasn't close. It was a bit upriver, out of sight. We all shut up and looked. I figured it was a beaver or something. But then it happened again, a little louder, a little closer. Ryan was like, "What the hell is that?" We grabbed the flashlight and tried to point it in the direction of the sound, but the trees and brush were too thick. The light didn't reach far enough. Dave stood up and squinted and said, "Yo, is that a person?" And I looked, and yeah, I could just make out something. A figure maybe, but it wasn't walking. It was in the water, standing waist deep. But here's the part that still fucks me up. It wasn't moving at all, just standing there, completely still, like it was waiting. None of us said anything for a solid 30 seconds. Then Ryan goes, "Hey, you good?" in that awkward, half-concerned, half-scared voice you use when you don't want to be rude, but your instincts are scream and run. No response. I whispered, "Dude, what if they're drowning?" But even as I said it, I knew that didn't make sense. The water's not that deep there. If they were drowning, they'd be thrashing. This person, or whatever it was completely still. That's when the flashlight flickered and died. Ryan cursed and started shaking it, but it didn't come back on. We used our phones instead, but the batteries were low. We'd been playing music off them for hours. When we aimed our phone lights back up the river, the figure was gone, just not there anymore. We kind of panicked, like not full screaming, but that silent panic where everyone starts grabbing their stuff and nobody's really talking. I remember zipping up the bag and telling myself, "It's just some drunk guy. He left. He's gone." We started walking fast toward the tracks, taking the way we came in, this super narrow path through the trees. Ryan kept glancing over his shoulder. Dave was in front of us, and I could tell he was on edge too. We weren't saying anything. Then we heard branches snap behind us. I turned around instantly, phone light out. Nothing. But it had been close. Way too close. We picked up the pace. Dave said, "Let's just get to the car, bro." And that's when Ryan tripped. just face planted out of nowhere. I thought he rolled his ankle, but when I helped him up, he said something grabbed him. We laughed it off at first, like, you probably tripped on a root. But he kept saying no. It was cold, like a hand. He said it was slick, like it had just come out of the water. I swear to God, I've never run faster in my life. We didn't stop until we reached the road where the car was parked, got in, locked the doors, and just sat there in silence, all of us sweating, breathing heavy, not saying a word. Eventually, Dave started the car and we left. I looked out the window as we drove off, and I swear I saw something standing just inside the tree line, watching us, not moving. We didn't go back to that river spot for the rest of the summer, not once. After that night, none of us really talked about what happened. Not in detail anyway. A few quick jokes here and there, sure, like, hey, remember when you said something grabbed your leg, Ryan? Or, bet that guy's still standing in the river waiting. But it was nervous laughter. Nobody really wanted to dig into it. It was easier to pretend it was just a weird night. Maybe some creep messing with us. Maybe the heat was getting to our heads. Maybe the beers hit harder than we thought. But then weird things started happening. Little stuff at first. One morning, about a week later, I woke up and there was muddy water on my bedroom floor. Just a small puddle right by the door. My windows were shut and I live on the second floor. I tried to think of any logical explanation. Maybe I tracked something in from outside the night before. But the thing is, I hadn't gone out. I stayed in, didn't even leave the house. The next day, I found a wet footprint in the hallway, just one, barefoot. My parents thought it was mine, obviously, but it was way bigger than my foot. I didn't tell them that. I just cleaned it up and didn't say anything. I called Ryan later that day, and right off the bat, he says, yo, please tell me nothing weird's been happening at your house. I froze. I asked him what he meant. He said he's been hearing water running at night, like loud, like someone left the tub on full blast. But every time he checks, everything's dry. He said he's been unplugging his bathroom sink and keeping the drain covered just in case. Marcus wasn't answering texts at all. We finally met up with him, maybe 4 or 5 days after that. He looked rough, like bad sleep, twitchy energy, bloodshot eyes. He sat down at the diner booth with us and didn't say hi. Just said, you've seen it too, right? We all stared at him. Nobody wanted to be the first to admit anything. Then he tells us he saw it again. Not by the river, not in his dreams, in his backyard. He said it was around 2 a.m. He was up late playing games with headphones on when he caught movement in the corner of his eye. He looked out his window, and there it was, standing in the middle of his yard, soaked. Same exact posture, same tilted head, just there, and it didn't move, not for like 5 minutes. He just stared at it through the blinds, completely frozen. Then it stepped backward into the trees and disappeared. I'll be real. I didn't believe him at first. I wanted to, but part of me thought maybe it was sleep paralysis or something. But then he showed us the ring of wet footprints on his back porch. They weren't fresh. They were drying. They looked like they'd been left there hours ago. Faint, but still there. That's when the dread set in, like real dread. That cold in your gut, goosebumps on your neck kind of fear that makes you feel like a little kid again. We all agreed we weren't going back to the river, not for the rest of summer, maybe not ever. We tried to move on, tried to keep hanging out, hit the pool went bowling, tried to just be normal again. But every few days, something new would happen. Lights flickering, phones glitching out, that sound of dripping water in places where there shouldn't be any. And then came the dreams. Mine started about 2 weeks after that night. In the dream, I'm always standing on the edge of the river. It's foggy, dead quiet. No birds, no bugs, just me and the water. And he's always there, knee-deep, facing away from me, then slowly turning. Never fully, just enough for me to see that same wide-eyed stare. His mouth is always slightly open like he's trying to speak, but no sound comes out. I always wake up in a sweat before anything else happens. The others had almost identical dreams. Not similar, identical. We started comparing notes, and it got worse when we realized the dream sometimes continued the next night. Like it was one long sequence split into parts, a memory that kept unfolding. Marcus had the worst one. In his, the figure didn't stay in the river. It started crawling up the bank toward him, not walking, crawling, fast, like elbows and knees, digging into the mud. He said he woke up screaming so loud his mom thought someone broke into the house. We agreed to do something about it. We didn't know what exactly. Maybe just go down to the river one last time during the day, try to prove it's just in our heads, face it, get closure. So one Saturday, around noon, we packed up a cooler and headed back to the bend. It was blazing hot, and the air felt thick like it always did out there. Nothing seemed off at first. We even laughed a little when we saw the old rusted rail car, like, wow, can't believe we were scared out here. But the second we stepped onto the sand by the river, the air changed, dead still. Not a sound, no wind, no insects, no birds, just silence. We stood there, all three of us, facing the water, waiting. Then Marcus points. There, floating near the edge of the water, was something wrapped in plastic, like thick, torn plastic sheeting, the kind you use in renovations or to seal up crime scenes in movies. It was half submerged, and you could see hair, like black, stringy hair, trailing in the current. Ryan ran toward it, too fast, and as soon as he got within 5 feet of it, it jerked, like moved violently, just once. He screamed, fell backward, scrambled back to us, yelling, "It's alive! It's alive!" We grabbed him and booked it. Again, just like that first night, through the brush, over the tracks, to the car. We didn't speak until we were 5 miles away. I can't tell you what that thing was. A body? An animal? Something worse? All I know is, ever since that day, we stopped having the dreams. But something tells me it's not over. It's been almost a year now, and I still can't explain what happened. We all left for college a few weeks after that last river visit, and we pretty much stopped talking about it. The dreams went away. The noise, the footprints, everything just stopped. We moved on, or at least we thought we did. But then earlier this summer, Ryan called me out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him in months, but the second I heard his voice, I knew something was wrong. He didn't even say hi, just whispered, "Travis, it came back." I didn't ask questions. I just said, "Oh, where are you?" And I got in my car and drove straight to his place. When I got there, he looked worse than I'd ever seen him. Pale, twitchy, sleep-deprived, like he hadn't seen daylight in days. He showed me his phone. There was a photo in his camera roll, a grainy one, taken through a screen window. It was blurry, but you could make it out if you knew what you were looking for. A figure, In his backyard, facing the house, half shadowed, barefoot, and soaking wet. Ryan said he didn't take the picture. It just appeared on his phone. He swore he hadn't gone near the river, hadn't talked about it, hadn't even thought about it really. But the dreams were back. He said he was waking up drenched in sweat, or worse, in water. He'd feel the sheets and they'd be soaked. No explanation. His bathroom mirror would fog up in the middle of the night, even with the AC on. And then came the whispering. He said sometimes, just before falling asleep, he'd hear a voice, a low, broken whisper, repeating the same thing over and over. Don't look at the water. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on his couch, fully dressed, eyes wide open, holding a kitchen knife I found in his drawer. We kept the lights on. Every now and then, we'd hear the pipes creak, or the wind brush the windows, and we'd both flinch like idiots. Around 3 a.m., I finally dozed off. Maybe 10 minutes later, Ryan woke me up by screaming. He said he saw it. Again, inside his room this time, standing in the corner, dripping, watching him. We were done pretending this was just a shared delusion. Something was following us, watching us. And now, it wasn't just tied to the river. I called Marcus. He didn't pick up. I tried again the next morning, and his mom answered. Her voice was shaking. She said Marcus had been admitted to the hospital. She said he'd been found outside, barefoot, in his pajamas, standing in the middle of a creek bed 10 miles from their house. No idea how he got there. No memory of leaving, just gone for hours. He kept repeating one thing to the EMTs. It wants to drag me back. We went to visit him. He didn't say much at first. He looked through us like he was somewhere else. Finally, he said, I figured it out. It's not just some ghost. It's not a person. He said it was like a parasite, something old, something that attaches itself to people, maybe through fear, maybe through the water itself. And it doesn't just haunt you, it wants you to see it, acknowledge it, invite it. That's why it stands still, why it doesn't speak, why it stares. He said that night on the beach, when we first saw it, that was its way in. We saw it, really saw it, and that was all it needed. He told us it lives in water, but it feeds through people. That hit me like a punch to the chest, because I remembered something my grandpa used to say when we were kids. Don't stare too long into a still river. Things stare back. I always thought it was just some weird old saying, but now I wonder if he knew something we didn't. We left the hospital that day not really knowing what to do. We were 20-somethings, no priests, no ghost hunting gear, just fear. So we made a plan. If this thing came from the river, maybe it could go back. We didn't know how, but we decided to return to that bend one last time, not to run, not to camp, but to confront it. It was the middle of July, around 6 p.m. when we got there. The sun was low, and the river looked calm again. Too calm. We didn't bring much, just a shovel, a waterproof speaker, and an old backpack filled with salt, rope, and a bunch of random stuff we found online, mostly superstition, but we were desperate. Ryan pulled out his phone and started playing audio he'd recorded. The whisper, the one that said, "Don't look at the water." We blasted it at full volume into the riverbank. Nothing happened. Then he yelled, "We're not afraid of you," and threw the speaker into the water. The moment it hit the surface, the river rippled, but not like normal. The waves pulsed outward in perfect rhythmic circles, and then we heard it. A splash. Closer than before, we backed up toward the trees. I grabbed the flashlight and scanned the water line. At first there was nothing, but then He rose. No swimming, no crawling. He just rose from the water like he'd been waiting under the surface. Same pale skin, same empty stare, soaking wet. No sound, no blinking. This time, he wasn't across the bend. He was 5 feet from us. I froze. He raised his hand, slowly, and pointed at Ryan. Ryan stepped forward. I grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" He didn't even look at me. He said, "If it wants me, I'll end it here." And then, I swear, he walked into the river. Marcus screamed his name. I tried to grab him, but it was like his body wasn't even his anymore. The water reached his waist, then his chest, and then he was gone, just gone. The water went still, and the figure, gone too. We stood there for maybe an hour, shouting his name, searching the shoreline, but nothing, not a trace. We called the police. We told them he slipped and went under. They searched the river for 2 days. Drones, boats, divers. They never found him. To this day, his body has never been recovered. Marcus moved down south a month later, said he'd never go near water again. As for me, I'm still here, still having the dreams. And sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet and the moonlight hits the window just right, I swear I hear dripping and whispering, and I remember what it said. Don't look at the water.